All right, thank you all for being here. We're going to do something a little bit different tonight, but we'll get started after a word of prayer. Father God, thank you for bringing us here. Thank you for blessing us. Thank you for the rain that you're going to be sending our way tonight. Lord, we just ask that you would bless our time together. Help us to have your wisdom and your insight into your word. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, I have gotten some questions about a particular book of the Bible several times in the last month or so, and got another one today, and I just thought, you know what, it's not very long, we're just going to go through that. So if you've got your Bibles, I would encourage you, we're not going to do Proverbs, but I want us to start in Proverbs. We're going to do Ruth, and Ruth is 4 chapters long, but it tells us quite a bit about, it tells us a lot about the heart of God. It shows us what it looks like. I'll get to that in a minute. But we're going to start right at the end of Proverbs. And Ruth lands in your Bible, unless you have a Jewish Bible. If you do, awesome. But if you've got just your traditional English Christian Bible, you're going to find the book of Ruth at the end of Judges. And there's a reason behind that. The very first line of the book of Ruth says, "In the days the judges ruled." Doesn't it make sense to put it after Judges? Sure. If you get a copy of the Jewish Bible, which has those same books in it, it's going to wind up being right at the end of Proverbs. You finish reading Proverbs and then you read Ruth. And there is a reason behind that. There is a Hebrew word that only appears in your Bible twice. The first time it appears is Proverbs 31, verse 10. "A wife of noble character, who can find?" That phrase, noble character, that Hebrew word for that, appears only one other place, and it is to describe Ruth. So, in your Hebrew version of, or your Jewish version of the Old Testament, they put that right after Proverbs 31, because you read Proverbs 31 and go, I wonder what that looks like. Let me show you her. She's right here. So just wanted us to look at that, but if you read Proverbs 31, actually let's just do that. We'll start with that. Proverbs 31, starting in verse 10. "A wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good and not harm all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She's like the merchant ships bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for their tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand she holds the distaff and the grapes and the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. She's clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her work bring her praise at the city gate." And the next thing you'd read is Ruth chapter 1, verse 1. So when you see those themes of the Proverbs 31 woman that gets thrown around quite a bit, again, if you came in a little bit late, we're going to be in the book of Ruth. And the reason we started with Proverbs 31 is because there is a word used in Proverbs 31, a wife of noble character. In Hebrew, that's one word. That word only appears one other place in your Old Testament, and it appears in the story of Ruth. She is described as that kind of woman. in the Jewish ordering of scriptures, you read Proverbs, and the very next story is Ruth. So Ruth is an example of what this looks like in a number of ways. Obviously, the story of Ruth is a little bit different because she's not a wife the whole time, is she? So we're going to see some of these characters portrayed in a little bit, characteristics portrayed in a little bit of a different way. But there are some of these that are just glaring hyperlinks, and you go, oh, that happens in this story. Oh, yeah. So it makes sense to put it there. So Ruth, is a lot of threads and ideas and themes and genealogies from the Bible that are all woven together in a story that shows us what Hesed is. Hesed is a Hebrew word that we should all know. It is how God describes himself. Real quick, put your thumb there in Ruth, and let's jump over to Exodus chapter 34. Exodus 34. This is verse 6 and 7. When God is introducing who he is to Moses, when he is giving a description of what he is about and what he stands for. Moses has been trying to lead the people in a relationship with God several times now. They have failed. Moses says, look, I really need like a supercharge. I really need to know who you are. God says, I'm going to show you my glory. You can't see my face, right? Because, anybody ever seen Indiana Jones? What happens when you're going to melt, okay? You can't do this. You can't look into God's glory and survive. It's not going to happen. So God kind of covers him in a rock and kind of shows him his back as he goes by. And then God says something about himself. He is revealing himself to Moses, and this is what he says, Exodus 34, verses 6 and 7. And he passed in front of Moses, proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger and abounding in hesed and faithfulness, maintaining hesed to thousands, and forgiving wickedness and rebellion and sin. So that's where it appears twice there. NIV puts it as the word love. Does anybody have anything different than just love there in Exodus 34, verse 6 and 7? Loving kindness, interesting. Does anybody have anything else? Goodness, okay. Faithfulness is in that idea too. The best description I have ever heard of Hesed, the best definition, it is a joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control kind of love. It's like the fruits of the Spirit wrapped up in one word. When you're trying to, sure. There's different ways that you can transliterate Hebrew. It uses a completely different alphabet. But you will see Hesed, or sometimes you will see CH, because technically in Hebrew it's chesed. So however you want to spell that, yes. It is a joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control kind of love. Yes. Explore Galatians for more on that one. And so the hesed, the love, the loving kindness, the loving faithfulness, the loving goodness that all these English translations try to get, there's not just a really good one-word parallel between the Hebrew word hesed and our English language. There's just not. A lot of people throw love out there, but love gets defined in a lot of different ways in our world, doesn't it? I love my wife. I love the tamale I ate yesterday with Dave. Those are two very different things, right? We use the same word to describe it. We mean two different things. So Hesed is God's love for his creation, for his humanity that puts up with a lot of nonsense that we throw out there, but he loves and he's committed to us even when we're not committed to him kind of love. And more. It's a very difficult word to define, but it appears twice in God's description of himself. When God says, this is who I am, he uses that word twice. That's going to be a big theme within the story of Ruth. We're going to see Hesed come up a lot of times. We're also going to get to go to our favorite book of the Bible, Leviticus. Yes, because there's a lot of Levitical. I'm the only one that got excited about that. Why is that happening? There's a lot of things going on in the story that if you are a Jewish person living in that world at that time, you get it. This is how we do life. But us, many years removed, many miles removed, there are some things that are happening that we look at and go, why? What is a kinsman redeemer? Why is this? Why is she trying to marry a who? Different world, different culture. So we're going to stop a little bit and look at that. Also, there's some very important stuff going on with genealogy, and we will get there. But let's just start right at the beginning of Ruth chapter 1 and verse 1. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. Okay, who are the Moabites? This gets into the genealogy thing that we love to just skip over. Who are the Moabites? Thank you. The people who live in Moab, right? Wonderful city in Utah, right? No. No, it's not that one. It's kind of interesting that they named it that, but that's a whole other thing. The Moabites. Do you know who the Moabites descend from? From Lot. And who? Lot and one of his daughters. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. They get their dad drunk, and it's one of those stories you read in Genesis, and you're just like, okay. But it's setting the stage for something very important later in your text. There's no text in your Bible that's not important to grabbing this whole story. Again, there's a lot of them we look at. Even the genealogies we look at and go, I can't pronounce all those names. I'm telling you, there's stuff in those names that later they're going to come back into play in the story, and it connects some information. So, is this a good land full of wonderful people, or just from what you know so far, is this a great place to be or not? No, probably not. No. So much so that God told his people, don't have anything to do with them. Just keep them away. You know, if they want to come to church with you, tell them no thanks. Yeah. Okay? They need to stay away. So let that trigger you here. There's this family, and they're from where in Judah? Bethlehem. Anything important ever happened in Bethlehem? That's from Nazareth. Really good things come from Bethlehem. Yeah. Okay. All right. So tuck that away in your story here. But these folks, these Judahites from Bethlehem, go down to a really sketchy place with really sketchy people. The man's name was Elimelech. This is verse 2. His wife's name was Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah. And they went to Moab and lived there. Again, there's no food. There's a famine. Their solution is we will go somewhere where they do have food. They wind up in Moab. Verse 3, now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women. One named Orpah, the other named Ruth. After they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Bum, bum, bum. Commercial break. When you get to that part in the story, you're going, oh no. Let's remove this from modern day context, okay? These are women who are now in a foreign land who have no male counterparts. Now, knowing what you know about the ancient world, what problems might this cause? Okay, many. What are some of them? Ownership of? Potentially. A lot of women were pulled into slavery in those areas. There's no man to stand up for them. Hey. No man to speak for them. They wouldn't be heard in court systems in that area. Wouldn't be able to own land in some cases. Now, remember, the Proverbs 31 woman talks about how she stores away money and she's going to buy land and start a vineyard. She's going to work the system. She's going to be able to do it. But especially in the Moab kind of region, that's not going to be happening. That's not something that's going to be able to happen. So you've got these three women. Two of them are Moabites, but they're widows. And then you've got this other one that's a foreigner who's a widow in this foreign land. What are they going to do for food? By the way, there's not a food pantry in Moab. And there's not Social Security survivors benefits. There's not, if they can. Because that's a Jewish law. That is not a Moabite law. They don't have to do anything for those people. You're cursed of God. You lost all your family? Seriously? I don't want anything to do with you. The difference of the God of Israel and his way of doing things in that ancient world is so radically different from anything else around them. We can go to those biblical examples of going, oh yeah, they'd be able to glean the corners of the field and don't do it. That's in Israel. That's not where they are. They're in Moab. That's not the rules there. So what are they going to do? There you go. They're going to leave. Let's look at this. Verse 6. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her two daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. Then Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you Hesed." There it is again. Remember in the Exodus passage it was translated as love or loving kindness or loving faithfulness. Here it is. May the Lord show you Hesed as you have shown Hesed to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband. Okay? So let's pause for just a minute. In the ancient world, you made money, you survived, you grew, you gained in stature and standing and all the things to be successful in that day and age. You did that through having a bunch of children. That's why you read of all these people that have these huge families. What is odd about the story of Orpah and Ruth? They were married to Mahlon and Chilion. How long? 10 years. What do we not have here? Kids. So not only is Naomi in need, but these ladies are in need. Naomi's going back to Judah, to Bethlehem, where God says these Moabites are not, they've done horrible things. So how many eligible Jewish bachelors are going to be lining up to marry these ladies? Not likely, right? So here Naomi is doing something kind for these daughters-in-law. They have no responsibility to Naomi. This should speak a lot about Naomi's character, that they want to go with her. They're under no obligation to go with her. They would typically just go back to their parents' home. And so this is what she's doing. Y'all don't have to come with me. Go back. God will bless you. You guys were wonderful daughters-in-law to my sons. They're gone. Y'all need to have babies to be able to survive in this world. Go back. Okay? So let's see what happens. Then she kissed them goodbye, and they all wept aloud and said to her, "We will go back to you and your people." But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have more sons who could become your husbands?" Now that's an odd question. Just tuck that away for a minute. "Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me." Okay. here's one of the odd things that to us doesn't stand out right. In our culture, we'd go, oh, okay, well, they would kind of stick with the family, and then they'll find another husband somewhere. But Naomi is like putting this on her, right? I'm too old to have more sons to be your husbands. And even if I could get married and could get pregnant tonight, how long are you going to have to wait before you can marry my son? That sounds a little strange, but this is sort of the, I hate to use this phrase, but I will use it because maybe it connects a little bit closer. This is the safety net, or this is the welfare system built into the law of God. That when people fell on hard times, when people lost loved ones, when they didn't have provision for them, how are they going to be provided for in a world that doesn't have any of this system? Your family takes care of you. So let's look at this real quick. Just stick your thumb in there. We're going to jump over to Deuteronomy chapter 25. Deuteronomy chapter 25. And we're going to look at verses 5 through 10 or so. If brothers are living together and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside the family. Now that seems odd. But how was the land in the promised land divided up? By tribe. Okay? By tribe. So let's just play what if. If this woman is married to somebody in the tribe of Judah, her husband dies, and she marries outside of the family, marries a Reubenite. What now happens to that land? Who gets it? Because now it's split between two tribes. Who gets this? Do you see the problem there? Let's keep it in the family. Now, God made provisions. If there were women, they could inherit the land instead of the men. He made that provision for some daughters of Zelophehad, another great Bible name. Just keep these for your children and for your grandchildren and when it comes around. So there were workarounds on this, but again, we want to keep the land divided evenly based on the tribes. So don't marry outside of the family. Her husband's brother shall take her and marry her and fulfill the duty of the brother-in-law to her. The first son she bears shall carry on the name of the dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. So in other words, if my brother dies and my sister-in-law would then become my wife, we were to have a child, not my child, it's my brother's child. And in doing so, we can carry on that family name, we can carry on the inheritance, we can carry on all the things that go on with that and keep all those promises intact. So, with Orpah and Ruth, what would need to happen because their husbands died? They would marry the brother. Is there another brother? Evidently not, right? Okay, so levirate law can't come into play here. There's not another family member right there that could bring the family in and provide for them. Now again, this gets kind of odd in our heads, but this is a way for everybody to keep their home, everybody to keep their property, everybody to keep everything steady. You're all in the same family. You're all living in the vicinity of one another together. This is how you keep stability going forward in that world. Yes, ma'am. We think of last names. They would be of the same tribe, but think of Peter's name. Peter is his nickname in the New Testament. He is Simon, son of Simon bar Jonah, Simon, son of Jonah. Or sometimes it's Ben. That's a other Hebrew rabbit trail. But they were known by who their father was. Right. So James would be James, son of Matthew. Okay? I have a nephew. My brother has a son. His name is Enzo. If this levirate law came into effect and Enzo was born, he would not be Enzo, son of Matt. He would be Enzo, son of David. Do you see how that carries on the family name and the lineage? Genealogies were very important in that day and time. And so that would carry on that name. But again, that kind of goes away if I'm just going to marry anybody. So, this is, again, the family unit looked very different than it does today, and we think about things very differently in our culture than they did. So, all right. So, that's what's going on here. That's what they're wrestling with. Naomi's saying, I can't have kids. Even if I did, it's going to be a while. Y'all will be past childbearing age. This doesn't do you any good. Just leave me, go back home, and try to find another husband. At verse 14 of Ruth chapter 1, at this they wept aloud again, and then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. Look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. And when Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. That's commitment, isn't it? I'm going to give up on everything I know. I'm going to give up on my home, my family, my faith. I'm going to cast that all aside, and I am going all in with you. Yes, ma'am. Why would she do that? It's a good question. Can I ask you a question in return? Why would God stay so committed to us? Say it again. Can I share a Hebrew word with you? Hesed. It's hesed. It's an example of hesed. When it doesn't make any sense to do so, when you can't look at it and instantly go, oh yeah, there's something to gain from this. That's hesed at play. And again, that's what God says he has for his people. So you're going to start seeing a character in this story that functions very much along the lines and having the characteristics of God. Yes? Mm. Exactly. She sees something so attractive in Naomi that she's willing to give up everything to follow her, knowing her character and her relationship with her God. Yeah, Naomi's like the best missionary ever. Fantastic point. Very good. I'm trying to determine if we want to run down a rabbit trail here or not. Nah, let's not do that one. Okay, verse 19 of Ruth chapter 1. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi," she's told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune on me." By the way, Naomi means pleasant. Mara means bitter. This journey started out with her being a very pleasant person, and it's ended with her being a very bitter person. But the journey's not over quite yet. Verse 22, so Naomi returned from Moab accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. Chapter 2. Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a man of standing from the clan of Elimelech. Elimelech. What was Naomi's husband's name? Elimelech. Oh, so this is a relative of her husband. Okay. This guy's name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite, do you notice how they keep emphasizing that? They don't just call her Ruth. Ruth the Moabite. Interesting. Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the fields and pick up leftover grain behind anyone who has behind anyone whose eyes I find favor. Naomi said to her, "Go ahead, my daughter." So she went out, entered a field, and began to glean behind the harvesters. Again, this is an Israelite thing. This is how God's going to provide for the needy in the land. They didn't have access to this in Moab. As it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz. Wow. Who was from the clan of Elimelech. Again, the narrator is telling us, this is a relative. This could be a good thing. Just then Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. "The Lord be with you." "The Lord bless you," they answered. Boaz asked the overseer of his harvesters, "Who does this young woman belong to?" The overseer replied, "She's a Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi." She said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters." She came into the field and has remained here from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter. So Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field. Don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the women. I've told the men not to lay a hand on you, and whenever you are thirsty, go get a drink from the water jar that the men have filled." At this she bowed down with her face to the ground, and she asked him, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" Boaz replied, "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and your mother and your homeland, and you came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Interesting, isn't it? My mind just went to a place, and I'm trying to see if I can find it real quick off the top of my head. Here it is. Turn to Deuteronomy chapter 10 real quick. This is Deuteronomy chapter 10, and we're going to start in verse 14. "To the Lord your God belong the heavens, even the highest heavens, the earth, and everything in it. Yet the Lord set his hesed on your ancestors and loved them, and he chose you, their descendants, above all the nations as it is today. Circumcise your hearts, therefore, and do not be stiff-necked any longer. For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow, and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. And you are to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt. Fear the Lord your God and serve him. Hold fast to him. Take your oaths in his name. He is the one you praise. He is your God, who performed for you those great and awesome wonders you saw with your own eyes." Who in the story is doing what God has asked? Boaz is being who God has called him to be, right? He sees this foreigner, even the Moabite, but he knows she's abandoned her God, she's abandoned her people, she has come wholeheartedly into Israel, and guess what? She's welcome here. He asked about her. He asked, "Who is she?" When they told her who it is, then he says, "I've heard about all that you've done."
Who told him about it?
It's a good question. The narrator, I guess. I don't know. I'm sure this is making some news. I mean, Bethlehem is not a town of 50,000 people. It's maybe a town of 500. Everybody's family. You better know when a Moabite shows up in town, everybody's going to go, "Who's this girl?" Say it again. Naomi is in his family. Yeah, or at least Naomi's deceased husband was a family member. Yeah. Yeah, she's talking. They've heard. Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir. There were lots of vineyards. He heard it through the grapevine. Very good. Very good. Yes, Beth. So the reason that Naomi went back was she had heard that the Lord had blessed her people. And so we just read that as, oh, he's provided rain, he's provided a harvest. The reason that drove them away is no longer there. She's going to go back home. Yep. Okay. So what Boaz is doing here is he's flat out living out Deuteronomy 10. He sees this foreigner residing among them who has embraced them. I'm going to embrace you. I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to give you food. I'm going to give you water. Everything you need, I'm going to take care of you. Ruth chapter 2, verse 13. May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord, she asked. You have put me at ease by speaking kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servants. In other words, she realizes, I'm not even worthy to be one of your servants, okay? Verse 14, at mealtime, Boaz said to her, come over here, have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar. Again, all that was required was just let them pick up the seeds that you dropped on the ground. He's not doing that. He says, come along with my women who are collecting the grain. You're not going to follow behind them. You're going to be with them and collect what you want to. Here, you don't even have to go get your own water. We're going to provide you the water. Here, come eat my food. We know you don't have anything. Come eat my food. Do you see how far and above and beyond he's going in this situation? He's taking her in, yeah. When she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain, and she ate all she wanted and had some left over. As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men, let her gather among the sheaves and don't reprimand her. Okay, so let's put this in. Okay, I ate lunch today with somebody at Panera Bread. And I just happened to be waiting for a few minutes, and I just asked the lady, I said, hey, this bread that you make, what happens to it at the end of the day? Oh, well, what we do is we bundle it up, and it goes to a shelter, to a ministry, and they use it, when it's not fresh anymore. Okay, great. But during the day, what do they do with it? They sell it. What Boaz is saying is he's saying, don't wait until it's expired and we start sending it back to the shelter, and then you can have some. He goes, no, just come help yourself to the buffet. Just let her dig into the main crop here. Don't keep her away from it. Don't tell her not to. Again, this is not the bare minimum. This is just harvest like you're one of my people and keep it. Like it's your own crop. This is berserk, crazy generous in that day and time. Let her gather among the sheaves. Don't reprimand her. Even pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up. Don't rebuke her. Leave extra behind, yes.
Maybe it's my skepticism, but I'm sitting here thinking, was she attractive? Is he doing this because he's attracted to her rather than it's just out of the goodness of his heart?
Okay, so that's a good question. Let's see what we know about him so far. He has heard about her. He is blessing her. When he shows up at his field, he doesn't go, why are y'all standing around working? What does he say? The Lord be gracious to y'all. Has there been anything yet to hint to us that he has a demeaning character?
No, I can see that
He's a good man.
But he
Could
could still be attracted to her.
be. Could be. Could be. Now what we're going to see later in the story, and this is a good question to have now, but when you get later in the story, you're going to realize that he has opportunities to go, woohoo, and he doesn't do it. And it's going to cost him greatly. And yet he does the right thing. And Naomi, it's going to cost her greatly. And she does the right thing. More to come. Do we need to do intermission and get popcorn and, okay, all right. Okay, so this is verse 17 of chapter 2. So Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. Then she threshed the barley she had gathered and it amounted to about an ephah. Okay, does anybody have a footnote of what an ephah is? 30 pounds. Anybody at your house have 30 pounds of flour? Anybody? No. So she's supposed to be collecting just the leftovers. Like just what everybody dropped. Anybody grow up on a farm? Anybody walked behind a combine and looked at the ground? What winds up on the ground? Just a little bit of grain, right? Most of it goes right in the hopper, but there's a little bit of grain that falls through, right? And you know there's a problem and you get out the duct tape when there's too much. You start fixing the leaks. I grew up doing this, so, there you go. That's the kind of stuff she was supposed to be picking up. And yet she's got 30 pounds of the stuff. But wait, there's more. Verse 18, she carried it back to town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she had eaten enough. So not only does she have the 30 pounds she's got a doggy bag from lunch and dinner. All right? So, she's just been loaded down with food. They went from starving to death. What are we going to do with all this food? And so there's a question. Her mother-in-law asked, where in the world did you go today? I like to put some character into some of these characters. Like, I kind of see Naomi kind of sitting over in the corner going, please don't tell me you robbed a bank. Please don't tell me. Where did all this come from? Where did you go today? Where did you work? Blessed to be the man who took notice of you. And then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one that she had been at, where she'd been working. The name of the man I worked for today was Boaz. The Lord bless him, Naomi said to her daughter-in-law. He has not stopped showing his hesed to the living and the dead. She added, the man is our close relative. He is one of our guardian redeemers. Ding, ding, ding. I have a footnote in my Bible. I was going to send this over to Leviticus, but I'll just read the footnote. Here we go. The Hebrew word for guardian redeemer is a legal term for one who has the obligation or ability to redeem a relative in serious difficulty. All right? So what this means is if a guardian redeemer is there and there is, let's put it like there was a housing crisis a while back. Housing prices right now are going through the roof, right? It's really hard for some people to find property, to buy property. It's going off the market. Let's say your brother or your sister or your family member or whatever, they buy a house and for some reason they can't keep that house. You might fall into the category of being a kinsman redeemer or a guardian redeemer. And what that means is that property, you have first right of refusal on it. You can go and you can buy it, you can redeem it, but it's not yours. You'll be able to benefit from it for a time, but when the rightful heirs come up, it will be theirs. So let's think about this for a minute. Mahlon, Chilion, Elimelech, they had an inheritance in the Promised Land, in Bethlehem, in Judah. They have property there. But the women can't work it. There's problems with that. So what's going to happen to this land? What's going to happen to it? By the way, this is where the Year of Jubilee comes into big play. We're not going to get into it right now, but it seems like that the Israelites never did it. But what should have happened is every so many years, it all resets. That'd be a Sabbath year. It would all reset and go back to the original owners. This is how we keep everything fair and everything equitable. So, what Boaz could do is he could front all the money and be able to gather this property, and he would be able to benefit from the crops of it that are there. But if Ruth or Naomi were to have a child, guess where that property goes? To them. So if he shells out $500,000 for this farm, and then there's a baby, he just gifted them $500,000, and they get their land. That's a big expense, isn't it? That's a big cost. So Naomi, though, is going, think he likes you. You had a pretty good day, and guess what? He could bail us out of this problem. Then Ruth the Moabite said, this is verse 21 of chapter 2, he even said to me, stay with my workers until they finish harvesting all my grain. Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, yep, you do that, sweetie. It will be good for you, my daughter, to go with the women who work for him, because if in someone else's field, you might be harmed. So Ruth stayed close to the women of Boaz to glean until the barley and wheat harvest were finished, and she lived with her mother-in-law. Chapter 3. One day Ruth's mother-in-law, Naomi, said to her, my daughter, I must find a home for you. Literally, I must find rest for you, but yeah, we'll keep going. Where you will be well provided for. Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know that you're there until he has finished eating and drinking. And when he lies down, note the place where he is lying, and then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do. Okay, so let's pause there for just a minute. Uncover his feet. How's the best way to put this? This is going to be a very frank and very shocking marriage proposal. Not coming from the man, coming from Naomi. This is going, I'm yours if you want me. I'm available. Ruth. Did I say Naomi? I'm sorry, Ruth. Sorry. Thank you for paying attention even when I'm not. More coffee, hang on. This is Ruth making a very frank proposal to Boaz. After he's in a really good mood, after everything's gone on, you go down there with your best dress on. We'll see what happens. Okay? Now, there's several different things that could happen here that could cause various things to go into motion. What I want to emphasize here is that Naomi is concerned not for herself at this point. She's looking out for the Moabite. Why would she do that? Why would she be concerned here? Hesed. Naomi is showing what Hesed looks like. So again, we've seen this character in Ruth the Moabite. We've seen it in Boaz. Boaz is tracking on the fact that Ruth has shown Hesed. And in so doing and being generous, he's showing Hesed.
You have to assume that Naomi knew enough about Boaz's character that he wouldn't misinterpret this behavior.
I'm trying to keep the Hebrew kind of G-rated here. You don't mistake this one, okay? It's going to be very clear what's going on here, and they're going to see if this plan works. Look at verse 5. Ruth replies, I will do whatever you say. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. And in the middle of the night, something startled the man, and he turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. Who are you? He asked. I am your servant Ruth, she said. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are the guardian redeemer of our family. Okay. Let's keep going. Verse 10. The Lord bless you, my daughter, he replied. This Hesed is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all that you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. There's your Proverbs 31 reference. Although it is true that I am a guardian redeemer of our family, there is another who is more closely related than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to do his duty as your guardian redeemer, good. Let him redeem you. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning. Okay, so we've got several moving parts going on here. And what happens, and tattoo intact, scholars debate these things. What goes on here is a bit confusing to us. Naomi is trying to get Ruth married. I want you to be okay. Ruth says, I will do everything that you ask of me. However, Ruth, when she gets to Boaz, she invokes a different law. Boaz then starts taking both laws together. And what Ruth does with her language is she enacts levirate law with herself. So let's pause here for just a minute. Instead of redeeming the family land and for Naomi sort of thing, I want you to have a baby with me so that my mother-in-law can be fulfilled. There's going to be self-sacrificial stuff here. And if you're not tracking with me, turn over one page. Well, actually, it's the same page in my Bible. Chapter 4, verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive. She gave birth to a son, and the women said to Naomi, Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age, for your daughter-in-law who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons has given birth. Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him, and the women living there said, Naomi has a son. Who had the son? But who gets credited as having the son? Do you see what Ruth has done? For Ruth so loved Naomi that she gave her only begotten son. Hesed. We're running out of time. There's more. Chapter 4 has a whole lot of moving parts in it. But what I want us to realize is that you see a lot of characteristics of God. Where have you seen characteristics of God so far in this story? Boaz with his care of Ruth, the foreigner residing among us. I'm going to protect her. I'm going to take care of her. I'm going to provide for her, even when I don't have to. Even when I've done the minimum, he goes way above and beyond what was the minimum, right? Where else have we seen it? Ruth to Naomi, showing that hesed, that I'll be committed to you. I'm not going to give up on you. Naomi to Ruth, I'm going to try to find you a husband. I'm going to try to care for you, even though she didn't have to. Boaz, yes. Yes. Very much. So do you see, again, it's a small story, but here's the shocking thing to me. Israel, one of the big problems in the Old Testament is that Israel is supposed to be a light to all the nations. They are supposed to be a witness to the goodness of God to everybody else out there so that all the Gentile nations will go, there's something attractive about that God and we want to be a part of it. And Deuteronomy 10 tells us that when they turn and they come, what do? Come on in here. God's about growing the family. And I find that one of the most telling and powerful and self-sacrificial examples of Hesed that mirrors God in the Bible is a Moabite. A Gentile. A bad Gentile. And they keep emphasizing the Moabite root. Ruth the Moabite. It's interesting. It's almost like the story is trying to teach us that there's nobody who's fallen so far that can't be redeemed or that can't be living as an image of God. Yes? Yes, thank you. Thank you. Every person did what was right in their own. And in these days, there was no king, and everybody did what was right in their own eyes. Judges, if I could erase one book of the Bible from the Bible, and I'm not going to do this, but Judges would be on my top list. Oh, it's a painful story to read, isn't it? They start out with all this promise. They go into the promised land. Hey, everything's good. And it is all downhill from there. To where tribes are warring and almost killing each other out. To where people who should be an example of God cut up prostitutes and mail them around to try to... It's a horrible story. Where it seems like even the people that God raised up don't know His character. And yet here we see a gleaming example of His character in an Israelite, Boaz, in Naomi, but in a Moabite. It's a huge condemnation on Israel. It's a gleaming example of who they're supposed to be, and it comes in the form of a Gentile Moabite woman. And society wouldn't even be worth anything. And yet she cares and she loves for her family and gives sacrificially. It's a pretty amazing story. Yes? Uh-huh. This is going to set up the messianic line. Mm-hmm. The Messiah is going to come through Ruth's lineage. Yeah. This is one of Jesus' grandmothers. And yeah, we'll get there next week, so Lord willing. I assume we're not going to have a snowstorm next week, but who knows? So anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. May the Lord bless you and keep you, make His face to shine upon you and be gracious to you, and may you show His hesed to everybody that you encounter this week, all right? All right, we'll see you Sunday.